Welcome, premium subscribers. You're not just getting a glimpse, you're getting the full Chapter 5 of 1. Every page, every turn. And because you're on the inside, there's more waiting after the chapter. A conversation with the author, Hank M. Greene, where we dig into the hidden layers of Maya, Inuvik, and what it means to build an underground rebellion against AI. You'll also find the complete edited Chapter 5 PDF right here on Substack, so you can read along, annotate, or go back and find the lines that haunt you. This is the full experience. Let's step in. Chapter 5. May. May began in silence. We woke to 31 degrees outside, frost still clinging to the window edges, but the inside of the apartment felt hollow. No Spencer, no Maya, just the tick of the coffee maker filling the kitchen with steam. I poured a cup for Beth, slid it across the table with the milk. She pulled her robe tight, her braid falling forward as she wrapped both hands around the mug. "It's so strange without them," she said. "I wonder how they're doing." I know. Nothing more. There wasn't much else to say. The quiet pressed in. Finally, I broke it. "Let's visit Jack this morning." Her reply carried a faint attempt at cheer. "Yeah, let's do that." By 8:20, we were at the hospital. Gray clouds pressing low, the air barely above freezing. Jack's smile when he saw us was the best warmth of the morning. His speech was slurred now, his thoughts scattered by the drugs, but the spark in his eyes remained. He asked after us, after Maya and Spencer, then crooked his finger for us to lean close. "How's the project?" he whispered. Beth shared stories from her walks through town, weaving ordinary life back into the room. But the nurse told us he'd be moved home tomorrow, arrangements already set by Maya before she left. Even in her absence, she was still moving pieces. On the way to the site, I asked Beth if she knew about the move. She hadn't. "Cool," Inuvik said, satisfied enough. Later, as he talked about college, Toronto in September, computer science, his whole face lit up. I wonder what it would take to build a truly smart system. Processing power spread everywhere, real time, no latency. Beth and I shared a look. I thought, what number am I thinking of? And Beth, without realizing she'd spoken aloud, said 7. I smiled. Thought experiment notes. Imagine a sphere of energy, pulsing in a sea of frequencies, expanding, contracting, absorbing, releasing. If you froze one instant on a photosensitive film, you'd see only an arc, a sliver of the curve, one moment of the sphere's life. Each arc a fragment of something larger, always in motion. Like Jack, like us. May 2nd, 2027. Since time and his predestinated end abridged the circuit of his hopeful days, whilst both his youth and virtue did intend the good endeavors of deserving praise. A Funeral Elegy, William Shakespeare. This morning, Beth noticed the book on my nightstand, The Complete Works of Shakespeare. "What brought this on?" she asked, holding up the heavy volume. I reminded her of the morning Maya quoted Michelangelo, and then mentioned Shakespeare. That same afternoon, I checked out this book from the library, a small anchor to something older than all of us. Beth had flipped open to the table of contents. A Funeral Elegy caught her eye, and she read aloud the opening lines. Fitting, given the day. Jack was moved home this morning. Beth and I were there. We saw Alex and exchanged only a few words, an unspoken acknowledgement that he had no choice when Spencer was taken into custody. Maya had arranged everything before she left. Full-time nursing, strict visitor limits, instructions down to the smallest detail. Even in her absence, she was still guarding him, and especially guarding him from H. As we stepped off the porch, H was just arriving. By the time I turned the truck onto the road, I could see her in the rearview mirror, arms flailing at Alex. The sound of raised voices carried across the cold air. "Beth, we just missed the fireworks." Right, that's about as close as I want to get to H. The morning was still young. "Beth, are you up for a drive?" She hesitated, weighing the day. Then, "Yeah, let's do that." We drove through the tundra under a heavy gray sky, the land stretching flat and endless, snow still clinging to the shaded places, rivers swelling with thaw. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you listen harder, a landscape that erased everything except the person sitting next to you. Jack on my mind one moment, the sorrow of an ending, Beth in the next, the certainty that whatever came, if she was there, it would be enough. By 2 o'clock, we were back in the apartment, empty, silent, peaceful, the kind of calm I could get used to. 5/3/2027. H is a mechanic. Today, she pulled her first levers. My teaching contract won't be renewed this fall. Beth was told her job is on the list for elimination, budget cuts. It's not about budgets. It's about us. H is dismantling Spencer's friends, piece by piece. At school, I overheard talk of a group in the States, young, restless, angry. They've branded themselves with old school logos, selling t-shirts, playing basement shows, keeping their momentum outside the mesh. It's clever. Analog rebellion in a digital age. Their message is simple: beware the machine. Not AI in the abstract, but the subtle chains of incentivization. Core 2 answers with bread and circus, dopamine delivered at scale. Most people are content, happy even. The message doesn't land, except for the teenagers, disenfranchised, untouchable inside their private meshes. Core 2 can't steer what it can't see. A battle is brewing, one side chanting in garages, the other rewriting reality with algorithms. By the time I picked up Beth, the weight of it all had settled into silence. The drive home was quiet, too quiet. Outside, the sky was a flat gray lid pressing down on the town. The snow half melted into slush that refroze into ridges along the roadside. Even the ravens seemed quieter, hunched black knots against the pale sky. Inuvik feels this way sometimes, like it knows something's coming and is holding its breath. We compared notes over dinner. No question, H has marked us. Beth leans back, thoughtful. Okay, let's ask how our real people would respond. Let's go with it. Sit tight. We don't need to run. We love this community. We can find other work. And besides, Maya and Spencer will be back soon. When they are, everything changes. I love her optimism. It steadies me, even when I know how fragile it is. Optimism is a kind of blindness, but it's also warmth. I laughed, trying to lighten it. Where else are we going to go? Beth laughed too, though there was a trace of steel in it. Still, as I lay down tonight, I can't shake the question: how dangerous is H? And how much more dangerous is Core 2? 05/04/2027. The last day of school arrives weirdly midweek, Wednesday, and it already tastes like closure. I've been hunting for little ways to make the kids care about a physics problem, to give them something that will stick when the bell rings. Bittersweet is the word for everything now. Class, contracts, the arc of a school year. Mine ends with this semester. Alex stopped by at the end of the day with bad news. He and a handful of officers had to deliver a cease and desist to the mine. Activity halted, for now. Big trucks left idle, ramps quiet. The kind of administrative blow that smells like someone else pulling strings. Then the feed from home. A raid in southern LA, an after-school house show gone catastrophically wrong, 6 kids dead. Official story, national organizers, dangerous, warrant executed. That part of the world looks like a different kind of war. Analog kids against a digital machine. But the aftershocks travel. On the way to fetch Beth from the administration building, I climbed out of the 4x4 to open her door like I always do. The cold bit at my face. The street felt thin, as if sound was muffled by the damp gray. I was halfway through the motion when she walked out, and behind her came H. She was already looking at me. Her eyes were flat, unreadable, and the moment she locked on, I felt the world tilt. She walked straight toward us as if walking through intent. H stopped a foot from the open door. Beth froze. I smiled at Beth, a stupid, reflexive thing, trying to anchor her. H leaned in and whispered as she passed, slow and certain. "You are the walking dead, Max." Not a threat, not a warning, a verdict. Beth climbed in, hands trembling. We drove away in a stunned silence. The highway slush refroze at the edges of the road, little ridges that cut the headlights into serrated lines. Inuvik felt closed for business. Sky low, light muted, everything braced. When Beth finally spoke, it was a whisper. "We have to take her out." I surprised myself by answering something colder than I expected. "No, we must be smarter. Whoever put H on this job doesn't just want Spencer. They want Maya. Spencer was bait." The stomach turn came not from fear, but from comprehension. A trap. We know enough now to see the outline. Whoever is pulling H's strings doesn't understand the CME plan, or maybe they think they don't, and they're using the mine as cover for something else entirely. I pulled the 4x4 off the road, braked hard, and the realization hit me physically. I opened the door and vomited, the world tilting around me. Beth ran to my side. She's the one who studied me. She took in the theory, the pieces laid out, bait, puppet, timing. She listened, face hardening like frost. Time froze between us for a second, then it snapped back. We are being toyed with, and we have to choose, react and risk everything, or hide, move the work, and try to outweight whoever's setting the board. We came home in a quieter car than the one that left. The wind had dropped. Street lamps threw thin halos over the snow. Inside, I tried to sort contingencies between sips of coffee. The world felt dangerous in a new way. Not just algorithmic menace, but human hands pulling levers. Beth slept later that night in my arms. The hug was the tightest I've ever felt from her, as if she too was bracing against the cold future. Coffee in the small kitchen felt like a truce this morning. We talked strategy in bursts, anxious, practical, realistic. Maya and Spencer need time, but we can't wait on hope alone. We control access to the account core set up for Maya. That's leverage. Beth's idea, brilliant in its quiet simplicity, was to keep the real bunker work moving while meeting new people and creating a plausible front. We can spin up another shell, buy an abandoned mine elsewhere, redirect supplies, and scatter risk. 3 sites instead of 1. If H and the Ottawa administrator want to choke off progress here, they'll have to stretch. "Okay," I said. "You meet Jack's contractor friends. Tell them about an exploratory mining effort, new investment, big community benefits. Have them find the abandoned shafts. Meet at the diner Saturdays to sync." She liked that. The plan felt like a lamp in the dark. Ukpik came by later, excited and nervous about Toronto. He asked about CS and building smart systems. The kid has a hunger that reminds me why this matters. I told him the obvious stuff, and he grinned like someone who will push systems into being. That evening, I did what I always do when the world threatens to tilt. I dove into the math, trying to predict what the star near the black hole might do, trying to translate cosmic threats into numbers. It centers me. It reminds me that the physical world follows rules, even when people don't. Outside, the weather shifted. A hard wind came off the tundra and the temperature dropped. The slush wind watched refreeze yesterday had crusted into rutted ridges. Inuvik's horizon cut flat as a blade. The town holds its breath in these transitional days, and so do we. I keep replaying the pieces. Spencer taken, H's taunt, the mind shuddered. Whoever orchestrated this wanted attention on one front while they worked another. If Spencer was bait, then Maya is the prize. Beth fell asleep in my lap that night before the dishes were washed, exhausted and defiant both. We are small and stubborn and ridiculous in the face of national security machinery and algorithmic control. But she's right. Keep traction on the survival facilities. Build the cover. Keep the community close. Don't let H make this personal. Hide the work. Multiply the risk. Tomorrow, we start pulling the threads together. 3 possible sites, Saturday breakfast at the diner, new paperwork, old hands will call in as favors. If we can't outmuscle them, maybe we can outlast them. And at 3 a.m, I'll be up again, notebook in hand, mapping photons and orbits. Because if the math is right, the stars will tell us what to expect, and maybe how to save the rest of everything. 5/6/27. Beth and I met at the table first thing this morning for coffee, maintaining the daily tradition, discussing the plans for the day. We decided not to talk about Maya and Spencer until the end of next week, out of respect for Maya's and her ass not to worry. Beth has arranged to get together with our new contractors at the cafe tomorrow to get this next phase going, our new plan to keep the survival bunker effort moving forward. Ben had a busy week with a lot of strangers in town for a convention, keeping H busy. I remember our time at MIT, that Spencer spoke so highly of his childhood, his parents, his father. Beth did the same. I don't share those experiences. Fathers exist in many different forms. Beth and I would make great parents. According to Beth, perhaps in a way we already have, considering that we, Beth, Spencer, and I, created the core, and then the core created Maya. We should have been better nurturers. There is so much going on right now, too much to add a marriage proposal. Yet I know our future is together. Fatherhood. My father was like all of us, learning how to be. I remember tender moments of him being dad, the super being, sharing moments of secret guidance, and other moments that shatter the time that should be childhood. Right now, not enough time. Gotta get the survival bunker completed before the CME. Beth and I stopped by to see Jack on the way home today. His face attempted a smile when he saw us. His words are on the edge of being unintelligible due to the drugs. He only has a few weeks left. Alex was there. Alex said something strange, that H was being nice and engaging. He said that she had set up a budget meeting with him, Alex, to see what could be done to get all his asked-for resources for next year. H is playing her chess game. After visiting Jack, we drove by the 3 abandoned mine sites we purchased yesterday as part of our effort to keep the operation going. It was 7:30 p.m. by the time we got home. We seemed to be getting used to just the 2 of us. The heavy silence resulting from the absence of Spencer and Maya is giving away to Beth and I's discussions, chores, walks, and cuddle/reading time. It's a strange feeling, both missing and worrying about what is happening with Spencer and Maya, and at the same time, relishing this time for just Beth and me. 05/06/27. Beth and I fell asleep last night, half laughing at how quickly we'd bought 3 abandoned shafts. Kim, the real estate agent, barely had time to shuffle the paperwork before we signed. Urgency makes things easy. The three sites are all different. Site 1 sits low in a frozen hollow, water nearby, and the smell of rust in the air. Site 2 has an old electric hookup, the cable draped like a scar across tundra stone. Site 3 is practically at the edge of town, tucked behind a ridge where the snowdrift piles pile waist high. None perfect, but together, cover. By morning, a brittle sun bounced off slush on the road, the air smelling of thawing rock. We met the contractors, Karen already waiting with the notebook, Alec looking restless, Ted with grease on his jacket. The cafe was loud with voices and plates, the smell of bacon cutting through the cold. Beth steered the table like she'd been born to it. Milestones, pay a delivery, no questions. I barely spoke, letting her voice set the rhythm. Each contractor now president of their own tiny mining outfit. A game of shadows, one step removed. Inuvik gets to keep logistics. His spreadsheets are cleaner than most code I've seen. He'll learn faster this way. I'll make sure of it. We drove the loop after. Site 1's hollow already starting to thaw. Site 2's hookup humming faintly. Site 3 still iced in. By the time we returned, clouds had cleared. 40 degrees. Almost warm. Jack smiled faintly when we visited. It cost him something. Morphine has thinned him to whispers. It's hard to watch the man I knew recede, like a star losing mass to something darker. That evening, Beth and I agreed tomorrow belongs to H. She's not a shadow anymore. She's a blade. We need a plan. The cube experiment kept circling me all day. 1 meter, filled with invisible frequencies. From any point, you still see the star. Disturb the fabric and it holds, mostly. But pull too hard, distort too much, and the whole cube buckles. Maybe that's what we're building here. A fragile cube pretending to hold. M. 05/07/27. Beth and I drank coffee in silence, both waiting for the other to bring up H. Finally, I broke it. Let's think of whatever we do now as a bridge, something to get us through until Maya and Spencer return. Beth nodded, relief in her eyes. Then let's build the bridge together, walk and talk. The thaw has turned the paths to mud and meltwater, but walking helps her think. It helps me listen. Beth's first idea was simple. Avoid H. I wanted more. Understanding her motives means predicting her moves. If we know what she values, we'll know what she does next. By afternoon, we were at Alex's. His house smelled of wood smoke. We didn't ask for much, just spent time letting him talk. He mentioned new faces in town, friends of H's, slipping into the community. That pebble sat heavy in my chest. Inuvik joined us for dinner. We told him about the 3 sites, swore him to secrecy. He leaned forward, eyes bright, and whispered, "This is real, isn't it?" He'll leave for Toronto in September, but tonight, he looked like he wanted the world to open right here, right now. When he left, he forgot one of his notebooks. I put it aside. Beth fell asleep early, her braid loose over the pillow. I stayed up with Shakespeare. The lines blurred into dreams again. The giant leather-bound folio, pages of music like constellations, and the cube between here and Alpha Centauri glowing like it wanted to speak. Tomorrow, we start the Saturday rhythm at Site 1. Cover story in place, 3 fronts alive. And H? Somewhere out there, circling. M. 05/08/27. This is the hardest entry I've written. At 1 o'clock, Alex called. His voice carried a weight that told me something was wrong before he even spoke the words. Beth is in the hospital. He explained what happened. Around noon, 2 agents asked Beth to stop by the station, routine questions, they claimed, about Spencer and Maya. Toward the end of the meeting, she stood to leave, said she felt lightheaded, and collapsed. By the time Alex arrived, she was barely conscious. Medics rushed her to the hospital. When I arrived, Beth was already under sedation. Machines beeped steadily, indifferent. The doctor, tired-eyed, spoke in guesses. Neurological poison, maybe. We're running tests. The words slid off me like rain on glass. I just sat beside her bed, watching the faint rise and fall of her chest, wondering what kind of enemy poisons questions. I couldn't help thinking of Maya and Spencer. Where were they? Did they know what was happening here? And now Beth. Was she even safe under this humming fluorescent lights? The morning had begun like any other. Coffee, breakfast chatter, the ordinary rhythm of school. The kids worked on final projects, cardboard planets and math notebooks smudged with pencil lead. Ordinary life. By afternoon, poison. I sat until the lights dimmed, until nurses exchanged shifts. Nothing to do but wait. M. 05-09-27. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. Beth sleeps now, her breath steady. I put Shakespeare aside to write. This morning, I called the school, asked for a sub to take the rest of the week. I couldn't stand the thought of leaving Beth alone in that bed. At 8:30, Alex arrived at the hospital and asked if I'd step by the station. "Half an hour," he said. I glanced at Beth, still under sedation, and told myself it would make no difference. The interrogation room was windowless, lit by a single bulb in a steel cage. A tall man with red hair stood as I entered, extending his hand. For a second I thought it was a greeting. Then he rotated the gesture, palm down, indicating the chair. On the table, by the chair, a glass of water, placed close to the edge. My chest tightened. Was this how they'd done it to Beth? Another man sat already, shorter, heavy-set, stubble along his jaw, eyes flat, both in dark suits. "We just want to talk about Spencer," the seated one said. I kept my voice even. "Then ask." "When did you meet him?" asked the red-haired man, still standing, both hands buried in his pockets. I told them some nonsense about meeting Spencer in a Juneau bar, reminiscing about an old song. "And Maya?" "The day she arrived here." The stubby man leaned forward, smirking. "This may take a while. Sit." I turned toward the door. "Unless you have something real, I have to get to the hospital." They let me go, but as I crossed the threshold, the stubby one muttered, almost like a curse, "You'll be hearing from us again." Back at the hospital, a nurse met me with a smile, a strange, dissonant thing after the room I'd just left. "The poison's leaving her system. She'll be ready to go home later today." Relief dropped me into the chair like I'd been carrying iron. By mid-afternoon, I was driving Beth home. But as soon as we opened the door, I knew. The armchair had shifted 2 inches. The sofa sat at a wrong angle. Someone had been inside. Beth talked through the evening about H, her patterns, her motives, piecing together a psychological model like a puzzle with missing edges. It was her way of fighting back. Alex stopped by around 6, checked on Sally Beth. He mentioned that H and the Ottawa men had already left town. Their absence felt stranger than their presence, like a void where the air should be. Later, Ukbik dropped in, awkward and brief, but his concern was real. When Beth finally fell asleep, I returned to my notes. A vector field in the plane can be visualized as arrows, magnitude and direction at every point. But our cube isn't a plane. It's 4-dimensional. Energy doesn't just flow, it folds, pulses, hides. Maya's dilemma isn't just math, it's the architecture of reality. And tonight it feels like we're standing inside one of those folds, caught between arrows we can't yet see. M. 5/14/27. Jack died today. Alex told us when we stopped by Beth's office. His voice was steady, but the weight behind it was impossible to miss. The town feels hollow now, quieter than quiet, as if the news itself pressed a hand against every window. Beth said H was regrouping. Her pattern is clear as ever: control, escalation, repeat. Whatever her true objective, she hasn't achieved it. Not with Spencer, not with Maya, not with us. Which means, Beth believes, she will raise the stakes. At breakfast, she leaned across the table, her face set, but her voice even. Max, we don't know what form her escalation will take. We need a fallback. I nodded. The bunker. It's secure, already has the surface building and warning system. We can build out a lab, an office, make it more than storage, make it livable. Beth didn't hesitate. Then let's start. We have Jack's funeral on Friday. Today, we prepare. We spent the morning drafting lists: heaters, fixtures, assembly tables, refrigerators, practical things, almost domestic. I drove Beth to her office so she could put in the orders and spend some time with her colleagues. In the afternoon, we worked at the bunker. Dust rose as we swept, the place beginning to take on the shape of something habitable. By 3, I insisted we head home so Beth could rest. We played backgammon on the sofa until the gray sky folded into evening. Jack gone, the town subdued, H somewhere out there, preparing her next move, and us, 2 people in a small apartment, shuffling dice, trying to pretend we still had ordinary time. 5/15/27. This morning, a convoy of military vehicles rolled into Inuvik. Green, heavy, dusted with frost. They built a camp just outside town, near the airport, a checkpoint for anyone coming in or out. No one had to say it. Everyone understood the signal. H is escalating. Over breakfast, Beth and I sketched out the bunker again, this time with urgency. Not just a fallback, but the base. Secure, hidden, the subterranean rooms are real refuge. On the drive over, just a few blocks, though it felt like a different world, we passed 2 Humvees parked at the corner. I looked at Beth. She met my eyes with a sharp frown, lips pressed tight, the edges of her eyes drawn in anger. It's a trap, and we're the bait. You were right, Max. They're after Maya. All the more reason, I said, to finish the bunker. No one knows what's underground. We seal that entrance, we disappear in plain sight. Beth nodded, the angriest I've ever seen her. She won't win. We spent the day making it real. Deliveries arriving, refrigerators installed, groceries stocked. We carved one subterranean room into the shape of an apartment, sparse but safe. We ate dinner there, listening to the hum of the new heaters echo against concrete. When we returned to the apartment, Beth showered and fell into bed, asleep almost instantly. I sought for a while, the silence pressing against the windows. Tomorrow is Jack's funeral. Just weeks ago, he was talking with us about the bunker and the future. Now he is gone. Inuvik sits under military control. The U.S. burns. Maya and Spencer are in the wind. And Beth and I split our lives between an apartment and a cavern beneath the ice, trying to prepare for a storm we can't yet see. 5/16/27. Beth and I woke knowing only one certainty: Jack's funeral. The morning was cold, mist threading through the streets, the sky low and gray. At 9:30, we walked toward the cemetery, our boots crunching on damp gravel, the air heavy with the kind of silence that holds back words. Through the fog, a figure resolved: Hank M. Greene. He leaned on a cane, stooped but unmistakable, with a woman at his side supporting his arm. My breath caught. Beth stopped. I whispered, "That's Maya." Not Maya as we knew her, but Maya aged, hair streaked with silver, posture softened. She was wearing the face of the astronomy professor I'd once had, an echo made flesh. My mind raced. How many roles had she played? How many lives had she threaded herself into? And then, overhead, the roar of engines. 2 military transports swept low, angling for Inuvik's small airport. Beth and I exchanged a glance. This was no coincidence. We joined the small cluster of mourners at the graveside. Alex stood across the way, nodding when our eyes met. Hank, supported by Maya, was directly opposite us. The minister began. "Welcome, friends." Jack was blessed to have lived within a true community. A crack split the air. Hank crumpled. Maya dropped with him, shielding his body. Another shot, and the crowd panicked, some dropping to their knees, others frozen. Soldiers in fatigues materialized from the fog, forming a semicircle behind us, rifles raised. Beth and I hit the ground. Soldiers moved methodically, yanking mourners upright, scanning each with a handheld device. Each time, "Clear. Please proceed to your home." I pulled Beth fully down beside me, her hand tight in mine. Then a scream. "Hank!" Blood darkened his sleeve, a growing pool beneath his arm. Medics rushed forward as our turn came. A soldier jerked me up, scanned, and gave the same flat instruction. "Clear. Please proceed to your home." I looked back as Beth and I were herded away. Medics lifted Hank toward a waiting transport. But Maya, she was gone. At the hospital, Beth slipped into conversations with the staff she knew, gathering details. An hour later, a nurse pulled us aside. "Your friend Hank will be all right. Bullet wound to the arm. He's asking for you." In his room, Hank lay pale but steady. He smiled faintly. "I remember when I was detained by federal investigators back in 2017. I was writing about 3 kids at MIT, building the first machine consciousness. The feds didn't like it, wanted a chat." He coughed, then added, "Stay off their radar. December's coming. Bigger storms ahead." Beth asked, "How's Core?" Hank's eyes sharpened. "Strangled. Core can't reach Core 2. They've severed its lines and are feeding it only curated surveillance data. Core 2 is the government's pet now. IRS, Fed, Pentagon. It's not just intelligence, it's social control. Incentivization at scale. And the Fed, they only care about one thing, managing the perception of value. Core 2 is their lever." Before Beth could press, a nurse came with his sedative. "We promise to return tomorrow." In the truck afterward, Beth said quietly, "The bunker?" I nodded. Safer than the apartment, Maya wouldn't risk going there. But when we opened the bunker door, lights glowed inside. Spencer stood grinning, walking fast to us. Behind him, Maya, very much herself again. Spencer hugged us both, his voice bright. "Man, I love you guys." Maya followed, calm as ever. "You've kept the place well," she said. Then, handing me the complete works of Shakespeare, "You left this at the apartment. Better here." Beth asked the question hanging between us. "How did you escape?" Maya's eyes flickered. H never needed Spencer in Ottawa. I secured his transfer through friends at MIT, slipped him from Canadian to U.S. jurisdiction. Then we vanished at a faculty reception. Core's been tracking communications here. It knew Jack's funeral would bring Hank. This morning's flight from Seattle, Spencer was part of the crew. Before we could process, the bunker's perimeter alarm shrieked. On the monitors, helmets, rifles, camouflage, soldiers crawling toward us, believing themselves unseen. I turned to Maya and Spencer. Into the tunnel. Now. Maya snatched the Shakespeare volume as she moved. Beth and I braced at the entrance as police sirens flashed in the distance. A cruiser barreled up the access road, scattering the soldiers. Alex leapt out, pounding on the door. When I opened it, he said breathless, "Hank's in a coma, blood complication. I stopped at your apartment, but you weren't there. Figured you'd be out here." I pulled him inside. He hesitated, but followed. "There's one more thing," he said grimly. "The U.S. declared martial law today." Meanwhile, in Ottawa, Mohit asked, "It's the last Friday in May. Let's go see if H shows up tonight." Sachin rubbed his eyes, still bleary from a long week, and said, "Okay, but if she's a no-show again, I'm only having 1 pint." Mohit grinned. "Deal." Later that night, the two of them sat at their usual table, pints in hand, scanning the door each time it opened. No H, just locals drifting in, the din of conversation, the hum of another Friday night. By the second pint, Mohit leaned back and shook his head. 4 weeks, same routine. She's gone. Sachin said nothing, but when he got home, he filed his report to Hassan's intelligence agency. After 4 weeks, still no sign of H. In Ottawa, Hassan leaned back in his chair, scrolling through the growing stack of identical reports. H's disappearance was no longer absence. It was a pattern, and patterns meant design. He checked his network in D.C., combing through the latest cables. Heightened tension, closed-door meetings, security sweeps. Something was moving beneath the surface, but no one was saying what. Hassan tapped his desk, frowning. H wasn't careless. If she was out of sight, someone had taken her off the board, or placed her where no one was looking. He whispered to himself, "This isn't disappearance. It's positioning. Someone's setting the stage." And with that thought, he flagged the Ottawa reports, adding a single line for his own eyes only. An opportunity may be forming, but not of H's making. And that was Chapter 5 of 1. But before we close, I've got a special treat. I managed to corner the author himself, Hank M. Greene, for a few questions. You've been asking about Maya, Ukpik, and whether this whole underground rebellion has anything to do with our own world. So let's see what Hank has to say. So Hank, let's get straight to it. Maya tells Max he's not influencing, he's inspiring. Be honest, is that you talking through her, or does Maya know something you don't?
Maya learned that from Michelangelo. I'm just a chronicler. She's the one who's been there, standing in that marble workshop, watching history form under his hands. Inspiration is hers. I just write it down.
See, that's the part that gets me. You're the author, but you're telling me your character knows more than you do. That's not writing, that's channeling.
Maybe. Some characters arrive carrying more truth than you expected. Maya's one of those. She doesn't let me forget it.
Okay, let's talk about Ukpik. Barely says a word in this chapter, but he feels massive in the room. Did you always know he'd carry so much weight later, or did he sneak up on you as a writer?
He was created for this role. Some things exist in order to find resolution, like atoms searching for balance. Ukpik is one of those. Quiet now, but inevitable. He bridges worlds, ancient and modern, human and ASI.
So he's not background, he's the hinge, and you knew that all along?
Yes, he was built to carry that weight, to remind us that the smallest voices can shape the largest outcomes.
Last one. Max, Spencer, and Beth are literally planning an underground rebellion against AI. Be honest, are you pulling from our real-world anxieties here about AI, dopamine, control, or is that just me connecting dots?
What defines AI at its core? Pattern recognition. And then pattern generation. Now look at humans. What defines us? We are creatures of habit, of pattern. And what controls those patterns? The dopamine system.
So the overlap was always destiny.
Yes. These two systems, AI and dopamine, are destined to collide, to intermingle. That's where the real story is. Not just machines against us, but patterns reflecting patterns until it's hard to tell which came first.
And here we are, caught in the loop. Hank, thank you for sharing that with us.
Always a pleasure, and always a little dangerous.
Danger keeps it interesting. That was Hank M. Greene, giving us just enough to answer our questions and maybe raising a few new ones along the way. Stay tuned for Chapter 6 next month, where we'll peel back more layers, dig into fresh insights, and, if you're brave enough, ask the questions no one else will. In the meantime, if you want to explore the world deeper, the books are on Amazon, and premium subscribers on Substack get access to the freshly edited chapters as they're released. So keep reading, keep wondering, and keep your questions coming, because this story, it's only getting bigger. And that completes Chapter 5, the full read, the Hank interview, and the chapter PDF, all in your hands. Thank you for being here, for being part of this circle. Next month, Chapter 6. The shadows lengthen, the stakes sharpen, and the choices our group faces will reverberate far beyond Inuvik. In the meantime, if you want to share this story with friends who haven't joined us yet, the books are available on Amazon. They're the raw fossils of what we're shaping here together, the starting point of this whole journey. Stay curious, stay brave, and I'll meet you right back here next month for Chapter 6. Before we close, a note on the nature of this production. The story you are listening to is based on the original fiction of Hank M. Greene, a pen name for an author who chooses to remain anonymous. All content is copyright 2026. Transparency is our protocol. This script was developed in collaboration with Google Gemini and refined by human hands. The voices were generated using Google AI Studio and stitched together in CapCut. Thank you for listening.